Hey guys, what's up? So today I wanted to kind of show you how the writing process works. You know, for normal people who aren't musicians, you might have never, you know, really known what the writing process is like for a musician. So I'm gonna kind of just write some little ditties. This is not a song. It's just gonna be like a little ditty, a little thing that I'll mess around with, and I'll kind of explain my thought process through the process. So I'm thinking I want to start with an A minor, and obviously that's where you got to start. You got to decide your first chord, right? And your first chord makes a bit of a difference. I mean, if you start in G, then that's, first off, you have two options. You have a major tonality you could do, and you have a minor tonality you could do. So that sets the mood for the song from the very beginning. Is, do I want to start with a major chord, or do I want to start with a minor chord? So I'm going to start with a minor chord. Now, does that mean that I have to stick with minor chords all the time? No. That's what songs do. They combine major and minor. So, and also I've decided that the style I want to use is fingerpicking. Although I fingerpicked so much Monday that literally my finger that's not used to it, it is sore. So, but I was just practicing, like Monday I was going ham on just practicing a bunch of finger picking patterns. So I'm trying to get better at it. So anyways, I'm gonna start with A minor. I'm just gonna mess around. So the first thing I have to really decide, besides the little pattern that I'm doing, is how long I want the chord to last. As a musician, that's literally like the second decision. After you decide whether you want it to be a major chord or a minor chord, now you have to decide how long do I want that chord to last. What I mean by that is, this chord could last one whole measure. 1, 2, 4, 1. So that would be like one whole measure, and then going into another measure. It could last for half a measure. 1, 2, and then the next chord could start on the beat 3, because what we're saying, right, is a measure has 4 beats. So you have to decide as a musician, do I want my chord to last all 4 beats, or do I want to divide the measure up between 2 different chords? Well, that just depends on what you're going for. Like if I do something like that, which is pretty cool, I dig it. It's kind of percussive, right? Well, that was literally 2 beats, 1, 2. And then I would go to the next chord. Well, that means I'm dividing the measure into 2 chords. Now you're going to hear this start to change and develop. The reason that's happening is not something you can really explain. It's a physical thing. The reason that it starts to develop is because I literally have to figure out how I want it to sound and how I want to play this little idea. So far, I've established my chord progression, which isn't anything amazing. A minor, F, C, G. Okay? And I put some little hammer-ons in there. And I've decided that I want to be 2 chords per each measure. 1, 2, 1. It's really hard to try to count a measure and play at the same time. Now see, this is where people stop. This right here is where people stop. And you might be saying to yourself, well, that doesn't sound that good. Here's the thing. I'm going to craft it until it sounds the way I want it to. In the beginning, it's not. That's part of the other video I did. That's part of the failing. That's part of the, it doesn't sound good yet. So I'm going to keep crafting it until it gets to where I want it to get. So let's see how long that takes. So the main problem I'm running into is when my chords are hitting, I've got this pattern that I want to use, da-dum-ba, followed by something like that, a different. Because if you do the same thing over and over again, that would work for like a verse because it's less. So now we're talking about form, right? Well, like I said, this isn't really going to be a song. It could turn into a song, and you could do that for like a verse. But if it's like the intro, you wouldn't do that same thing over and over again usually, because you want some contrast in your pattern. So the first time I might go, the second time I might, and then I come back to it. But it's a different chord now. It's a C instead of an A minor. And then something like that, and finish it off with a G with the same kind of idea I did with the F. This is real writing right here. So I think I figured out what I want. Now I just got to practice it enough to play my own thing. So the first thing I could do to vary this is, or the first thing I did do to vary it, to change it a little bit, is I made the chords last longer. I gave them all a full measure instead of making them half chords. And what that allowed me to do also is be able to play around a little bit more on this end. So this, or whatever, versus this. So this is a lesson in improvisation. You take your foundation, which in my case is the A minor, to F, to C, to G, and you can do all kinds of things with that. All kinds of things. That's your foundation that you can now build upon and write whatever you want to write. I haven't quite figured it out yet because you can tell I'm playing different things over and over again. Once I figure it out, then I'll have the pattern that I like. Now, here's the thing. We talked about how to change it once you figure out what you like. Another thing you can do is you can take these chords and you can make them different kinds of the same chords. So if I do A minor, I could do A7. Instead of F, I could pull a finger off and do an F sus. Instead of C, I could do C7, which wouldn't sound good. And instead of G major, I could do like a G major sus. So I'm not changing the chord, the root of the chord. The root is still the same of each chord. I'm changing the members that are inside the chord that give it what we call color in music. So this is just the beginning of the mindset of someone who is writing. You find your tonality, whether you're major or minor, your first chord. Then you figure out what pattern you want it to be. So in my case, it was the do-dum, or do-dum, da, do-dum, da, do-dum. Then you build upon that. So now, while you're doing this, it's not always going to sound the way you want it to. It's not always going to sound good. It's not going to sound published because guess what? It's not published yet, right? So, and it might morph into something completely different than it started. think that's to be said with all kinds of art, though. So that's the mind of someone who's writing. In the mind of someone who's writing. Thanks for watching.